Hi, I'm Chad Waldo with Techni Waterjet. I'm the regional sales manager for the North American territory for Techni. And today we're going to go over a little bit of Softtech. It's the software that drives all of our Techni Waterjet machines. Softtech was developed by Techni. It's proprietary software, and it's been around for the entire lifetime of the company. The company is now 35 years old. It is our 35th year anniversary, and I believe Softtech has been around since about 2001. For controlling all of our water jets. It's quite unique, and we're going to go right into it and take a look at it right now so that you can kind of see how this works. So this is just the basic interface that you'd see right on your control on the machine. It is a Windows-based control with the latest and greatest version of a hardened shell of Windows, just like anything else you'd run on a regular computer, although specifically for machines. So you can see we've got 4 windows here. The upper left-hand one is your actual table. That's the full table. In this case, I've made the table and the sheet the same size. This is an I-510 layout with a 66,000 PSI pump. And so it's a 5 foot by 10 foot, 5 foot tall, 10 foot wide for the purposes of the demo. So a couple of things to note. This software is also available on desktop, i.e. I'm doing this right here in my studio at home. So all of my programming can be done right here, sent right directly to the machine. The guy out there running on the floor can just hit start and go, as long as he's got a 0 set, or at least the nozzle close enough to where he needs to be for the sheet to start with, and off you go. All of the stuff that we're going to see here on the software can also be viewed live. That's a calculator, but whatever. Can also be viewed live right here on the Techni app. So while I am not tied to the machine back in the showroom floor, I can see it right here on the phone, but this isn't the software on the computer that's watching it, although you can see that via your phone. So let's get right into it. What makes other things that make this thing unique, right? So for instance, right now I've got these other 3 windows pulled up, and I don't know how well you can see the labeling of each one of those windows, but this one is part number 1, part number 2, and part number 3. So we're actually going to do 3 separate parts and put them onto the table, and I'm going to walk you through the nesting for it, some parameters for those things, some of the auto functions we do for each one. Typically you would bring in a DXF in each one of these and just use whatever software you have for your files and formats, and just make it a DXF and bring it in, and off you go. Today though, just for simplicity's sake, I'm going to show you one of the things that we have that's unique, which is our little library here. Now this library is customizable, so if you have some specific shapes that you want to use over and over again, you can import those in here. You won't necessarily get the same level of control like you will for this, where you can go and do height, width, and all those kinds of things, but at least you'll have some basic shapes that you can use and then scale however you want. If you're using your logo over and over again, then you can certainly have that set up in your library. The guys can click it, bring it in, scale it, and go to town. In this case, for this piece here, we're going to go with the bottom width that is 5 inches wide. We're going to go with the height that is also 5 inches. And we're going to go with a hole diameter that's 2. We're going to make it a large hole. And a side angle of 15 seems fine. We could do a 90, rotate this thing around. However, that really doesn't matter, and you'll see why when it comes to nesting. And we'll call that good. That's our part. 1 part per object. We'll put that on the table, and now we'll move, or put that into our window anyway for our parts, and now we'll go to part number 2. Part number 2 will be another one of these customizable objects. We're going to go with a little flange here, gusset. In this case is what it's called. It's typical 5x5. I don't need to do anything different with that. We'll just pop that in there. Off we go. And then we'll do another one that's maybe on another tab here. Let's do something else that's more like this. This is a flange. And we'll go with one that's outer diameter is 3 inches. Inner diameter 2. I'm probably messing that up. Let's do that again. I'm just making up numbers, right? So let's see. What is the outer diameter? What are they calling the outer diameter here? The bolt radius pattern, 1x1. inner radius, this inner diameter, outer radius, this. Yeah, so we probably can't make this too big. Yeah, that's what I did. I made it too big. There we go. Then we can make the bolt holes for it. We can space those out at maybe 3. Now we're talking. And then a bolt hole diameter of, we're going to go with 385. We'll make them oversized for a 3/8 bolt going through there. And then we'll make this inside diameter here. That's good enough. We'll make that a little bit bigger, actually. We'll do it at like, how big is 2? That's way too big. I don't know. We'll do it 2. It doesn't matter. And you'll notice I can put that anywhere, right? So I could actually make these parts kind of next to one another and then make them nest as well. You'll see what I mean here in a minute. But for each one of these, before I go and put them onto the table, I want to come in and just do an auto nesting function, or just an auto function, not nesting, but auto for the automatic leads, automatic lead out. I'm not going to do any automatic tabbing. I'm going to clear all tabs and make sure there's no tabs on there, and I'm just going to hit OK. And now we have all of everything we need for our lead ins, our lead outs, direction of the cut. So this is the actual part that's highlighted. Same thing over here. We'll do that, and we'll just say auto and say OK. Same thing with this one. We'll zoom in and say auto and say OK. And everything looks good for all 3 of these parts. Simple, ready to go. If this was a part that we needed to make super quick, we'd be ready to go with a 66,000 PSI pump. I've already got it set for A36 half-inch thick material. And now we'll go in and talk about putting them on the table. Keep in mind that all 3 of these objects are parametric. This is another unique thing with the Softtech software. If I make a change to this, once it's on this table, I don't have to redo anything. It'll automatically update it. So if I come in here and want to put a tab like right here, I'm not going to put a tab on a half-inch thick piece of A36, but if I did want to put a tab there, I could, and it would automatically show up over here. And I'll show you that once we get to that. Process. We'll go to process here, project properties, and we'll look at nest. We'll look at objects. So we have nesting is a set of parameters, that basic parameters. I have everything set to default, so there's nothing fancy I'm doing here. So we can see each one of our part numbers here ready to go. Let's say for part number 1, we wanted to make sure we made 5 of those. So we'll just say main quantity of 5. Quantity number 2, we're going to come back to that one. Quantity number 3, I want to say let's do, 6 of those. And then maybe on this one, we'll just fill the sheet. I don't know how many. I just want to make as many of those as I can. Okay, so I'll say OK. And then I'll go to our nesting, auto nest. And what you'll see it doing here is doing multiple nests. It's doing this over and over and over again. This is the one fancy thing that I have pre-selected that's not default, and that is an optimization. I want it to go through every variation it can think of and try to fit as many of those pieces on the table as possible. I want it to optimize. And as you can see, it took it 25.6 seconds to run through multiple nests to figure out what the best one was. The nested sheet utilization is 94.4%. That's pretty darn good for my first try at it, right? There's ways you can go in and play around with this and increase the utilization. Of course, we constrained the software when we set this up. We told it so many of those, and as many of those as you can, right? So we gave it some constraints. But with that said, it was able to fit in 3 different parts, total parts 303. I can say OK. Come back here to project properties, go back and look at the objects, and we can see that we've nested 6 out of 6 of part number 3, 292 of part number 2, and 5 of part number 1. Now there's all kinds of ways we can go and play around with this and try to increase the overall utilization of the plate. You know, we could fit one more of these right here. We can clearly tell that there's room. We could probably fit more of those up here as well. But again, we told the software to only make so many of them, so therefore it did. If we went back at this point now in the process, and for nesting, or for objects I mean, and came in here to this one and said, give me 8. say okay, and just re-nest it again, it'll go through all those iterations all over again if I want it to. This is just a toggle that I have turned on for nesting optimization, and figure out if it can fit that sixth one. And I don't have to try to look at the screen and count, or 7 or 8, however many I told it to. I don't have to think about that. I can go right back to the project properties screen and say how many of those are there. It'll tell me right from the screen. And again, we went through this. It took a little bit longer, 25.5 seconds or so, 94.7% utilization. So that's better, obviously. We put more parts on the table. So yeah, we got all 8. We got 8 out of 8. One of the great things about this is, and of course we only got 292 now instead of a 291 instead of 292. So one of the nice things about this is not only does it tell us that, yeah, we were able to fit those in and what the count is, so I don't have to look at the screen or figure that out, but it would also be able to tell us if something didn't fit. So if I go back now and tell it for part number 2 to fit 292, it'll still run through and give us this exact same result right here. It'll just say main quantity here, 292, nested quantity, 291. So it's a good way to be able to track that. Another nice thing is once this is done, we can save this program knowing we have this strip of material, not a whole lot of material left, but let's say it's a larger piece that's left up over there. We could actually fit whatever we wanted into there and just run that. So now we have an idea of what's left over on our sheet, so we can go back and use just the leftovers. It's very handy, very easy to use that way. And all of these things do the one thing that's the most important to us here at Techni Waterjet: to increase your uptime, to give you better uptime than anybody else, and to make you more parts per hour.